Well, hello there. It is great to see you again, and welcome back to another installment of Wealth Insights with Mitch Silberman. I'm your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff, and as always, we have the star of the show, Mr. Mitch Silberman of Silberman Wealth Strategies. He'll be joining us momentarily for another wealth management related discussion. But look, it's great to have you back with us here on the show for another discussion surrounding wealth management, those strategies to help you pursue that amazing life of significance. And I'm really excited about today's episode for a few different reasons, because today's episode, we're really diving into this topic really that pertains to you, our audience. What am I talking about? I'm talking about finding the right wealth manager for you. If you're a regular listener, regular viewer of the show, you know that Mitch and I have had conversations that really get into the heart of the different wealth management approaches, the different characteristics that make up elite wealth managers. But today we're going to talk about you and that process of finding the right fit for you. It's not an easy one, but there are some steps, there are some strategies that you can take to be able to find that right person for you. Because, hey, let's face it, at the end of the day, you want your wealth, the thing that you have worked so hard to achieve, to be able to achieve those goals, those aspirations and desires that are specifically meant for you and your family. Therefore, the right wealth manager for you will keep all of that in mind. So let's go ahead and bring Mitch out to get today's conversation rolling. Mitch, how are you doing today? Good to see you.
It's always great to be with you and our audience, Ryan.
No, Mitch, always a good time whenever we're able to get together for these discussions. And Mitch, I think to get us started, a good place would be to kind of zoom out, really. And let's talk about the challenges that people are facing these days on really how to evaluate the expertise and the experience of a given wealth manager before before somebody has the chance to work with him or her. And also the challenge of really determining whether the advice and the solutions that are being displayed in front of you by that wealth manager are truly meant for you. Talk to me about some of these challenges that exist.
Sure, it's a really big question. In fact, I had a profound moment about halfway through my career. Been in it for coming on 29 years now, but I met with a woman who was a successful executive, getting ready to retire, age 65-ish, and had a very significant net worth, all tied up in investments, 401k. So and we were evaluating whether we should work together. And I had this aha moment, right, where I stepped back and I said, I live for this. This is what I do for a living. I cherish being the safe money guy. I cherish being my client's guide and helping them make intelligent choices and avoid common costly mistakes. But I stepped back and looked from her point of view, how much pressure she felt to pick an individual and say, here's my life savings. Please don't blow it. Please do the right thing. And from that moment on, I felt so energized that this is never about me or my team or the markets or investments. It's about them. It's about you. It's about your goals, your dreams, and having the proper guide. So you have to, what you mentioned before, the human element is key, because this is not a transaction. It's a very different thing to say, well, I met this person, highly competent, but I don't like their style. I don't think they cared about me, but hey, at least they know what they're doing. This is a relationship. So it really starts with the human element. Of course, there's table stakes. Do you have licenses? Do you have experience? Have you handled this size portfolio before? How much planning have you done previously? What are some of your successes? Those are table stakes. But it's really the human element. Like, are we going to get along? Are we going to work well together for hopefully the next 5, 10, 20 years? That's really where you begin.
Right, Mitch. No, absolutely. And we spent a whole episode talking about your personal 5-step CFO process that you guys, take over at Silberman Wealth Strategy. And boy, is it thorough, and it gets really to the heart of a client's given goals and aspirations for their wealth in the future, which is all great stuff. But Mitch, shifting to my next question here, as you're looking at really the average Joe, and maybe they're going through the process of evaluating, whether a given wealth manager is right for them, do you often find that some issues maybe go unnoticed? Is there anything that you would recommend that people should be on the lookout for as they're evaluating these wealth managers? Or is there anything that they're missing on this front when going through this process?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still put the onus on the professional, because if the professional is the guide and saying, hey, thanks for coming in today. We're going to talk about, your financial future, your family, your legacy, what keeps you up at night, where you are. I think that the prospective client can garner a lot by the type of questions they're asked. So for example, if you're looking for the right wealth manager and you either walk into someone's office or these days could be via Zoom, and immediately they go into talking mode, or dare I say pitch mode, about how wonderful they are and their experience and their access and all the great things they can do. To me, that's a little bit of a red alert, not about their integrity or their ethics or even their competence, but wait a minute. Don't you want to know about me first? I know if I walked into a physician's office and the doctor looked at me, because I feel like I'm a money doctor, but if the doctor looked at me and said, okay, here's the medicine you should take, I would say, whoa, don't you want to diagnose me first? Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So I think one of the things to be aware of, hey, I'm going to interview a wealth manager. I want to know what they ask of me. I want to know how much they're focused on me and my family and my dreams and what they can do for me and how we would work together. It all has to focus on the client, their family, and their amazing life of significance.
Mitch, I love that. And Mitch, as I was getting ready for our conversation today, I was thinking about what I would want to see in a given wealth manager that I was sizing up, for my own needs and aspirations. And I kept coming back to really these three key traits that I had in my mind. I had the idea of integrity being the first, competence being the second, and then experience being that third and final key trait. Could you maybe speak to these three key traits and how they would best, really reflect the elite level wealth manager, a great wealth manager that's going to make sure that they are taking every step to provide the best solution, a custom tailored solution for me? Could you maybe speak to these three: integrity, competence, and then experience?
Integrity, competence, and experience. Plus, we are living in a post Bernie Madoff world. So you want to know, no offense, but if you were to rip me off, how would I know it? Right? I mean, that's one of the things of a con men. They're really good at tricking you. So obviously, they're the very basics. May I ask how long you've been in the business? Tell me how your approach is. Do you have a written, repeatable process? You can even ask this wealth manager, tell me about some of your successes with, keeping names anonymous, of course, and tell me about some of the challenges that you've faced and overcome. And tell me about situations where you've worked with someone like me. What did you do with them? And integrity, I've often found, Ryan, is what is something that you will not do? So if is there something that this wealth manager would look you in the eyes and say, this is something I wouldn't do. Even if you asked me to do it, I wouldn't do it. Because that sometimes integrity is the ability to say no.
Mitch, absolutely. But also from that same vein, for a wealth manager to stand up to maybe one of their clients really does speak volumes about the way they go about their business, right?
So I'll give you a real life example.
Please.
And of course, the names will be changed to protect the innocent, of course. So in 2004, I was working with a client. We were getting along fantastic. And then the internet was, not new, but it was still blossoming at that point, 2004. And the client calls me and says, I want to get out of the market. I said, why? And the client said, because they say it's going to crash. And I said, who's they? And the client was a little stunned, like, well, the internet. I said, okay. So we had a very nice conversation. We had a very warm relationship. And basically, I talked the client off the ledge, decided to stay invested. So a week or two later, the client calls back, says, we have to sell. Everything's going to crash. They say it's going to crash. And I said to the client, well, it's your money. We can do what you want. And of course, we can move to cash, but then we can't work together any longer. And the client said, wait a minute. If I move to cash, you're not going to work with me anymore? And I said, no. With no malice in my voice, I don't understand. I said, well, you're hiring me for my advice. We did a long-term wealth strategy plan for you, and panicking out of the market because they say so, you don't need my advice to sit in cash. So the client said, you're really not going to work with me if I move to cash. And I said, correct. And the client said, let me think about it. And 24 hours later, the client sadly panicked out and said, I can't, we have to move to cash. I said, okay. And after doing everything, we never worked together again. And no hard feelings, but that was my integrity saying, this is not in your best interest. Sometimes people do, especially with investing, the wrong thing at the wrong time for the wrong reason, and that can be disastrous.
Mitch, I really appreciate you sharing that story and that example, because boy, does it pertain to that essence of integrity within a wealth manager. But the second characteristic that I had mentioned was this idea of competence. And for those that are regular listeners of our show, Mitch, they know that we've spent lengthy conversations back in prior episodes talking about the idea of the human element and how important it is for a wealth manager to get to the heart of your goals, your aspirations, to really learn about you as a person. But on the flip side, there is this level of competence, true technical experience and expertise on wealth management strategies and solutions. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of competence with when finding the right wealth manager for you.
Oh, competence is huge. I mean, if you make a mistake with someone else's portfolio, that could have very, very bad consequences. So, I myself, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm blessed. My mom, may she rest in peace, that she was an avid reader. She would sit for hours and read, and I have the same thing. I read, I read, I read. In the old days, before there were lockdowns, I would travel across the country doing due diligence on different investment companies, kind of like kicking the tires. I still read all the time. So, of course, the basics. What are your licenses? What is your continuing education? How long have you been doing this? But I think any intelligent person who's done well for themselves, after a little while, will know, hey, this person's competent. I think they know what they're doing. But you also get a sense from the professional. Are they on their toes? Are they always learning? Or are they plateaued? Are they just checking out and going through the motions? I mean, why? A great question to ask a financial advisor if you want to know about their integrity and their competence experiences. May I ask why you're a wealth manager? And that's a great question, which will give you insight into the type of person you're going to be working with.
Oh, Mitch, I really love that question. It really does make a wealth manager look inward, and from the individual evaluating whether or not this is the right wealth manager. Boy, can that question answer a lot, right on the surface, as well as, at a more of a deep level, as to what this wealth manager's, aspirations are for you as a client.
Since you brought it up, Ryan, actually, I did. I'm going to answer real quickly why I'm a wealth manager. I made mentioned on a previous show, but I was a child actor. Depending on your age, you probably saw me on TV. I was in TV, movies, commercials, voiceovers, and I made so much money as a child actor. And my parents did nothing wrong. They just took whatever I earned and sat in the bank, and it just sat there and it didn't earn. And so as time went on, of course, I used that money to pay for college, to pay for used cars, to travel across the world, all good causes. And then, of course, by my early 20s, the money was all gone. And that's fine. But I think one of the reasons I got into this business, and one of the reasons I'm on the planet, is because I know, had my parents hired someone like me when I was little, I'd be really, really loaded today.
Oh, Mitch, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us. It really is, a deep rooted sense of service that you have, given your background and your upbringing, going through, being a child actor and having that sum of money. Not necessarily mistakes that you've learned from per se, but more so just strategies that that now can be leveraged. But Mitch, hey, that third key characteristic, I want to shift over to that now that I had mentioned earlier, this idea of experience. Time and time again, you and I have chatted on this show just about, you know, uh, how a wealth manager isn't necessarily a one-stop shop for all things wealth management. There's estate planning, there's tax planning, there's so much that goes into this complete picture of wealth management. So that being said, when I thought about this idea of experience, it is a little bit different from the idea of competence. It's not necessarily the technical expertise on a given topic, the experience rather being the experience of your team, that network of professionals that a wealth manager surrounds themselves with, partners in tax planning, estate planning, different liability insurance, networks, just so many different members of a given team. Talk to me and talk to our audience about how important this idea of experience and utilizing a proper team of professionals really comes into play when somebody should be finding the right wealth manager for them.
Yeah, this is crucial. And I'll give you the contrast. If you're a 25-year-old with $5,000 to invest, that's great. And that's a decision that, if you're not a do-it-yourselfer, it can be between you and your investment advisor. And that's fine. But when you get older and or maybe you still in your 20s and there's zeros and commas involved, it can no longer just between you and your investment advisor. You have to go up the hierarchy to a wealth manager or even a virtual family office. And this is where the team concept is crucial. So I've asked clients before, let me ask you something. When is the last time you, your tax professional, your attorney, your insurance professional, and your wealth manager all sat in one room and discussed your family's financial future? And guess what the answer is every single time, Ryan? Never.
Never.
Never. We've never had
I would
that happen
imagine.
before. So I have found clients love the collaborative effect. They love the collaborative effort of saying, listen, I'm not going to pretend that I'm still a CPA. I'm a happily recovering CPA. Okay. But I know some really good tax professionals, and I'm not an estate planning attorney. So we together are going to bring in on your behalf these people that have the experience, that have the knowledge, that could do this in their sleep. Of course, it's more important than that to them and to us and to you, but work as a team to make sure that you have this amazing life of significance that you've always imagined for yourself and your family.
You know, Mitch, so many of our conversations on this show surround the idea of wealth generation or wealth preservation, maybe wealth matriculation down to future generations. But really, it always stems back to the name of the show: strategies for pursuing an amazing life of significance. That amazing life of significance is what lies at the core of everything that happens within wealth management, especially given your approach to wealth management over at Silberman Wealth Strategies. Talk to us about this concept, the amazing life of significance. Why should, when somebody is evaluating whether or not the right this individual is the right wealth manager for them, why should they be keeping this idea of the amazing life of significance in the back of their mind when going through this process?
Yeah, I think just drawing on some of the wonderful things I've had clients say to me over the years, there was one client in particular who's a lifelong accountant. And after being my client for just a few years, Ryan, he looked at me, he said, you know, Mitch, working with you and your team, I feel like this massive load has been taken off my shoulders. My wife and I can travel the globe now, and we can do this and we can do that. And it meant the world to me, because that really is what we're here for. You know what your dreams are. You want to focus on your family and your business and your goals and your aspirations, but you need some help along the way. And that's where we come in. So think of it like, we have this, as you mentioned, a 5-step personal CFO process. When you created a business, maybe once upon a time, you were everything. It was you. But if the business continues to grow and be very successful, at some point, you're the CEO, but you're going to have to delegate. And you're going to delegate to a chief financial officer, a CFO. But the CFO works for you. So the CFO's job is to take a look at all the financial affairs of the company that report back to you, the CEO. So in our business model, you're the CEO, it's your money, it's your life, but you're delegating to us the wealth management, the strategies to lower your taxes, to pass along as much as possible to your family, to maximize charitable gifts, to protect all that you've worked hard for. That's our job, but we report back to you regularly so you can focus on what matters most to you, and the things you can't delegate in life. Keep focusing on those, making your life and your business all that much better. But we keep checking back with you regularly to make sure you're on track to achieve all that's important to you.
Oh, yeah, Mitch, there's so many steps, so many thoughts to consider as somebody is going through, a thorough discovery process, or really just the whole process of finding the right wealth manager for them. So I appreciate you carving some time out of your day to not only walk through your process and how you guys do it over at Silver Wealth Strategies, but of course, some of the thoughts and questions that somebody should be considering when they're going through this concept of finding the right wealth manager for them. Because remember, these are custom tailored plans to fit your goals, your needs, your aspirations for the future. This is not a one-size-fit-all operation, and finding that right wealth manager is a pivotal part of that process, and that pathway to living an amazing life of significance. So, Mitch, that being said, let's say somebody out there in our audience that they enjoyed the conversation today. Some of these things, these topics are resonating with them, and maybe they're interested in reaching out to you and your team to continue this conversation, or to start talking about maybe whether or not you and your company would be the right wealth manager for them. How should somebody go about reaching out to you and your team to get that ball rolling or get that conversation started?
Sure. Always the easiest is the website, www.silbermanwealth.com. It's B as in billion. And have a look at the site, have a look at some of the educational tutorials, the mini movie. But it's always worthwhile. There's so much political uncertainty, economic uncertainty, and social uncertainty right now. Doesn't it make sense to have a second opinion? Make sure you're on track to achieving that's all that important to you.
All right, Mitch. Well, hey, look, we appreciate you and your time, being with us here on the show, peeling back that curtain, giving us some of your wealth insights in today's conversation. And I'm looking forward to getting back together with you on the next one already.
Always a pleasure.
Alrighty, and hey, look, we want to take one final moment, as always, to thank you, our audience, for jumping aboard the show with us today. If you liked what you saw, maybe you benefited from any bit of the conversation today, do us a favor. Comment on the show, subscribe to it, share this information with friends, family, business owners, anybody that you think would benefit from some of the conversations that we are having on this show. We're diving into strategies for pursuing an amazing life of significance. These are those same strategies and conversations that Mitch is having with his clients regularly over at Silberman Wealth Strategies. And we have some great topics dialed up for future episodes that we would hate to have you miss out on, and any of the potentially beneficial information for you that might be contained in those conversations moving forward. So for Mr. Mitch Silberman, I'm Ryan Ruff. We're going to go ahead and say so long today, but we appreciate you being with us on today's edition of Wealth Insights with Mitch Silberman.